Mine and Noah's story for the 2018 CrossFit Games season was one of watching a dream that we set out together, or a goal of making it onto the podium, kind of a road. We went from 15th to 4th in our first attempt together at the CrossFit Games, and after that experience, we thought we could definitely do better than that this year. After a tough first event and a couple experiences throughout, we realized that goal might not be attainable, and we came back from the games after finishing 6th, and we went through an event-by-event breakdown with Chris to give you a perspective of what was going through our heads, what was going through our emotions, how we're analyzing and kind of approaching each of the subsequent workouts to try to continue to make the climb up the leaderboard after some bad events. So you'll get that video broken into a couple different parts, and you're about to watch part 1. For me, I don't know, maybe because my background is fighting and football, there's always a desire to go out and set the tone on the first experience, like with your competitors. Let them know that things are different this year. And I think whether I like it or not, I bring those emotions into the event as a coach, that I want the first event to really establish who we are going to be for that period of time. So we have a week to compete, or from Wednesday to Sunday to compete, and that first event is your only opportunity to make a first impression on your fans, on the media, on your competitors, and we felt pretty good about it. We had biked in the off season. We had done so much cyclical work. Our expectations were in line with, I think, where Noah's capacity was. So he'd taken 18th in the bike event from the previous year's CrossFit Games. So we had said, all right, if you could be anywhere between 10 and 15, that's gonna set you up so that over the duration of a competition, you can get yourself into that top podium contention type spot.
Obviously, from event 1 on, there were these, it just seemed like there was always something. So games start with a 10-lap, 7.5 mile road bike race, the criterium, and halfway through the bike, my foot starts kind of slipping off the pedal, and we had been clipped in, and the guy told me that they can loosen or tighten the clips to make it easier or harder to get in and out. And I said, I don't know, just somewhere in the middle so that it stays clipped in, but that I don't have a difficult time getting in.
So it starts out, the viewing for that was kind of difficult. So I basically just got up against a rail, and you can see the athletes go by and then they're gone for 2 minutes. The athletes go by, they're gone for 2 minutes again. So it starts out, he's in 10th, I think, for the first 3 or 4 laps. I'm like, all right, perfect. Things are starting out well. I'm feeling really positive and optimistic. Noah, my experience with Noah has only been good in competitions. We haven't really had any underperformances. He always steps up. He almost always brings his best to it. So it just kind of was there was a moment of peace for 3 or 4 laps where it was all right, things are good. I feel pretty good about this. Then all of a sudden, I don't know what lap it was. I think it was 7 or 8. He's just gone. I'm counting, and it's pretty quick because there are packs of people. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm like, all right, was that 5, 6, 7? Oh, 8. Shit. Where? And went way past 10. And I was like, all right, well, he's gone. There's no way he's coming back from whatever this first event is. In that event, I knew he could come back in the scheme of the competition, but in terms of setting the tone, I knew the tone was bad, but I still didn't know what happened. So my first thought was instantaneous panic. I was like, shit, he's hurt. He fell, because I had watched a couple of the girls eat it pretty hard, scrapes, bruises, and I was like, oh no, I definitely don't want that to be the case. Then he comes around, I see him get his bike, kick off his pedal, jump back on the bike, and I was like, oh, I guess he crashed and broke his bike, and it is what it is.
As my foot was kind of wobbling and slipping out of the clip, I just thought maybe that the clip had loosened up, and was like, oh well, at this point you just got to deal with it. If you keep getting unclipped, either clip back in or don't even worry about the clip. You can just push on the pedal without it. So I'm going lap 5, lap 6, and I think it was around lap 6 or 7, my foot slipped off again, but this time it really aggressively came off the pedal. And I looked down, and rather than being able to clip my foot back into the pedal, there was no pedal. The pedal was not attached to the bike. And I looked at my foot, and the pedal was attached to my foot. And for 1 second, I was really confused. It took my brain a second to process how that was possible. And I didn't even realize what had happened or like why it had happened, but just immediately went into survival mode. I was like, all right, well, what do I do? There's no pedal on my bike right now. It's attached to my foot. I had just passed one of the 2 bike pits on the full mile loop, so I knew I had a good amount to go. My foot is dangling off my right side. I pedal through with just my left foot all the way around the corner, up a hill, come up on the bike pit, super loud. People are cheering. There's music. The loudspeaker's on, and I come up to the pit and he yelled, my bike, I have no pedal. I need a new bike. And they kind of scrambled to hear what I was trying to say. One of the guys came and helped me, realized that the pedal wasn't on the bike. Somebody else went to get a new one. I got off my bike. The pedal is still stuck on my foot. So I reach down and I'm grabbing, like there's a little, I don't even know what you call it, like a little spoke that the pedal was attached to that used to be in the bike but is now just hanging off like this. So I grab that thing and I'm trying to get the pedal off my foot, but it's super stuck on there. So I like stomp my foot on the ground sideways, the pedal goes flying off. Somebody grabs a new bike, but it was the same bike, but it had different pedals than the one that I had used before, and it looked like there was no pedal on it. It was much smaller. It was just literally like the clip. It wasn't even a full pedal. And so I was really confused. I was like, wait, are there pedals? What? I don't know. And the guy was like, take that one. So I just hopped on, clipped into both of those, and tried to get myself back in the race. And all this happened within a matter of a minute. And I don't know how many people passed me. I think at that point I was probably, Max said he had counted, and I was in 12th to 15th, somewhere in that range. And when I got back into the race, I think I was in like 35th. And so that was obviously demoralizing, but I hadn't processed that yet. I just still was in survival mode. I was like, all right, I got to finish this race. Let me just try to make up as much ground as I can. And I saw a few people ahead of me. I made one big push and caught one guy. We together caught 2 more people. And I was able to finish the race and kind of have like these subpar consolation micro goals of beating off 3 or 4 other people. But still was really disappointed when the race ended. I across the finish line, it's over, and then it all sank in. I was like, damn, what just happened? How did that happen? The first event of the games, and I'm in this position where I was doing well, top 15 on a bike that's not my specialty, I would have been okay with. And all of a sudden I dropped and doubled my placement on that from 15th to 30th. And I don't know, there was not really much that I could do, so I didn't get too upset. It just kind of was what it was, and I knew I was going to have to move on. I happened to see Castro right after, and I said, hey, I don't know if there's anything you guys can do, but my pedal came off midway through the bike. I don't know why, I don't know how. Do you think there's something that you guys can do to adjust my time? Or I don't know, I really don't know, but please help me out here. This sucks. I don't want to start the games off that way.
When I found out that his pedal broke, there's obviously like, you're never, as a human, you're not like a simple entity where you just feel one way. But one of the things I resigned myself to as a coach in this sport is that at the highest level, things always happen. You're going to get no reps. There's going to be adverse situations. There's going to be equipment malfunctions. And one of the things that I told myself is I'm not going to let that impact how I help athletes approach the game. I don't want them to build resentment. I don't want them to start pointing at that, because the best of the best figure out a way year after year to be able to execute in those situations. So that belief system was challenged in that moment, because there's a million thoughts that go into my head. Is like, how was that not checked? How could a pedal have just came off in a bike race that's a circle around a lap? It's not like he got into a major accident. This is all of those, like, you know, why couldn't we have our own bikes, or why couldn't we have got these bikes ahead of time? And I wanted to feed those thoughts, because there's a lot of aggression just embedded within me in that moment that didn't turn out the way that I wanted. But the truth is, it probably happens in every sport, and I needed to, because there was no alternative. There's no solution of going and making a big stink about it, thinking that you're going to get points changed or any of that stuff. So I figured out, like, I don't know if it's just a way of dealing with stress to just be like, all right, forget it and move on. I know Noah kind of had hope. They went through like a review process to evaluate the bike. He had kind of had hope that it would turn out that they would figure out a way to adjust things. But I told him like right away, I was like, just make peace with it. Like, think you're in 30th place right now and you got to climb out of the hole, because trying to hope that this type of a situation over here is going to be resolved in a way that moves you way up the leaderboard is a silly way to think based on what we've seen in past years. So just figure out a way to move on. So, I mean, I was frustrated, but I also kind of, every year, I have to give talks and speeches and lectures where I tell people that this stuff happens. So if I do that, I got to hold myself accountable to that type of belief system. Otherwise, it'd be a pretty big hypocrite. So I don't know if that was helpful for Noah or if he wanted me to empathize with him in that type of a situation. But, you know, it is what it is.
And he said, sorry, man, there's nothing that we can do. And I just kind of like felt deflated for a minute. I was like, man, well, that sucks. That was the only thing I could think. I was like, that sucks. And I gotta try to do the best I can. And then a little while later, I kind of related it to regionals, and I thought, well, day one of regionals kind of went that way. You had something that you were looking forward to pull you out of that feeling of disappointment. Workout number 2 of the games is 30 muscle ups for time. That's one of my favorite workouts of all time. I've done that sub 2 minutes 5 times in my life, and I knew that that would be a top score. So I just tried to look forward to that and get excited, and like that same bring it on mentality I tried to get myself into, and had a little bit more of a difficult time. It wasn't as natural as it happened at regionals. It was heavier, right? Because it was the games. It was more meaningful, so it was more disappointing than just the little regionals placement was.
You had a bad event, something, you know, out of your control happened. Now we got something that you have the potential to win.
I shook it off. Event 2, 30 muscle ups.
We had set one secondary goal for Noah this year to get an event win at the games. I think sports are made up of moments, and if you have those moments where you cross the finish line in front of thousands of people and they're screaming for you, for the feelings that you were able to inspire in them, that's a feeling that very few people ever get to feel, but the people that do talk about how much that motivates and fuels their successes and builds longevity in sports careers. So I wanted to set a target for having one of those moments for him. And we thought 30 muscle ups for time was an opportunity for that to happen. His training times are awesome on that. We had worked muscle ups this year, which we didn't get to work last year because of the torn pec leading into regionals.
We go out, and I had my plan. I was gonna do 20, take a quick break, finish with 10, and I'm flying, everything's going smoothly. I make it through 15, 16. I think I'm in the lead at that point. I remember hearing them talk on the loudspeaker about moving quickly. Josh Bridges was next to me. I think I was like right in line with him. Around 17 or 18, I get a no rep, but all the judge said was no rep. And so I wasn't really sure why. I keep going, 18, 19, another no rep, and he says, no rep, up then down. I was like, up then down? I'm pretty sure that is what I'm doing, and I feel like nothing has changed as I'm going through the course of the months. Like, I hadn't fatigued yet. It's not like I was getting tired and struggling with my press out. It felt like they were the same muscle ups that they had been the whole time, but whatever, 2 no reps. I had to decide, do I want to do the 20 physical reps that I'd just done and take the credit for the 18 and come down at 18 instead of the 20 that I wanted to? Or do I want to do 2 extra reps to get to the 20 that was on my plan, but then I'm doing a set of 22 to open up with, which is more than I wanted to do. I decided to hang on, got to 20.
I couldn't tell from where I was sitting that he was getting no reps. I just saw the leaderboard behind me that he had been up on the rings going unbroken. His rep speed is generally as fast as the fastest people that do muscle ups, but somehow his name was dropping down the leaderboard. Then he came off the rings and I could see visible frustration, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So I look back and he's like, I don't know, 6th in his heat based on his big opening set, which I thought was going to be 20 unbroken, but looked like he had done 22 or 23, but I'd lost count because I'm trying to watch the entire the entire field of athletes do muscle ups just to try to get a gauge of where he is relative to them.
Came down, chalked up, was still in the mix at that point. Get back up to finish with 10 more. 1, 2, 3, another no rep. Shook my head in the middle of doing muscle ups, kept going, got to the 9th rep, which was actually 10 because I had 1 no rep. So at this point, I've done 32 muscle ups, and my count from the judge was at 29. I fail what would have been the judge's 30th rep, my 33rd. Try to hang on to the rings, fail again, come down, just felt it all unravel so quickly. Looked around, 3 people past the finish line, jump back up, do the 1 final rep, run across the finish line. I think it was still a 9th place finish, and people were excited and cheering me on, and I was just so bummed. I was like, you guys don't know, like that was going to be my workout. That was going to be the game changer for me right here in the moment, and it wasn't.
Expectations being, let's go out and try to get an event win, taking 11th on something that's one of his biggest strengths. Again, it was like bad event, tone not set. Then, all right, let's turn this around. Bad event, tone not set.
And it felt like it was something that was out of my control. And I don't want to be the guy that makes excuses. I don't want to pass blame off onto something else. Like, I just don't like doing that. But it just, at this point, 2 workouts in a row, felt like there were these little things that happened to me that shouldn't have happened, that were unideal, that I had to just deal with, and there was nothing I could do about it. And so I had to swallow a 30th place finish and a 9th that could have been a 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, and try to move on.
And it was just that back-to-back bad workout, I think, was a really, really tough way to start. And again, I think challenged Noah's resilience and that mind state that he wanted to cultivate, that he could deal with those adverse situations.
We get to event 3, CrossFit Total. Wasn't really sure how to feel about that one in the past. 1 rep max stuff was not my forte. It took me years to be able to get my strength up to be like middle of the pack with some of the other guys. So I wasn't as excited about that one as I had been for the muscle ups, but like I would with every workout, I was gonna go out and give my best. That one finally went great. I almost PR'd my back squat. I hit all 3 of my lifts. I was maybe a little bit more conservative than I should have been. I didn't know how good I was gonna feel once I got out onto the floor, so I finished my 3rd lift at 440, which was 10 pounds under my best back squat ever. Had I had 1 more attempt, I probably could have gone for 455, which would have been a 5-pound PR, and I think I would have hit it in the moment because of how good 440 felt. Moved on to the strict press. Really had no idea how anybody was gonna do on that. Everybody in the warm-up area was kind of, hey, what's your strict press? What's the best you've ever done? Like, nobody posts about that lift very much, so we were all uncertain. I knew I thought it was pretty good relative to the field, but I think I ended up having probably a top 3 to 5 weighted strict press, which people seemed to be impressed by. So I was like, oh, all right, I guess 220 is pretty good. Hit 440 on the back squat, 220 on the strict press. We move on to the deadlift. I'm feeling pretty good at that point. I pull 500 easier than I've ever pulled 400 in my life. Like, it flew up. We were using the deadlift bar, which I'm not used to, and that made it even easier. And my plan had been to go for like 515, maybe 520. And it took me a second to process. I was like, man, that felt really good. Should I go big here and take kind of a risk that could pay off? Or should I be semi-conservative, get a good number on the board, and avoid any catastrophe? And so I kind of played the middle ground, and I went 530, which still was a big PR. That's a 20-pound PR. And I pulled that relatively easy. Like, it wasn't absolutely perfect straight back. Like, my shoulders rounded a little bit, but it was not ugly, wasn't disgusting. I felt good about it, moved up quickly. Maybe if I let my form break down a little more and wanted to pull an extra 10, 15 pounds, I could have, but PR strict press, PR deadlift, very close to my PR back squat.
Ends up 11th overall in the CrossFit total for one of the, middle-sized or potentially smaller-sized athletes at the games, who's operating about 6 pounds lighter than he was the previous year, to be on a more tighter nutritional plan, to be doing more endurance work, to be PRing running in the off season, to be almost top 10 in a pure strength event, was a really proud moment as a coach. And I think also changed Noah's perspective of who he was relative to the athletic field, which I think carried over into other events at the games that in the same season.
So finally, something kind of went in my favor. I felt okay about it, but still, as much as I was trying to let go of the morning, was in, I think, 15th place or something, which is not where I had wanted to be after the first day.
The marathon row is, it's a tough one. You're always given things that you're underprepared for. I had actually, in training, given him half marathon row from the games, I think in 2013, where it started with a 2K row and then went into a half marathon, which I thought might actually be a worse event, having to go out at a max effort 2K to start a half marathon. But that's still only half the distance of what was done. So Noah was like, well, I feel as well prepared as I can. He hated me when I wrote that. He actually thought I was kidding and tried to dodge the workout. But I was like, dude, something like this could come out at the games. You're better off being prepared for it now. If your hands tear, blister up, it affects training. We got plenty of time for you to heal. Let's get some exposure to that so that you're more equipped to handle it. So I think his mind state was as good as it possibly could have been in there. He also had self-doubts about just his ability in cyclical stuff, his height. You always have those doubts.
There were waves of being uncomfortable. You would settle in and find your groove for a while, for 30 minutes, which is a long time rowing, and then you'd have a 10-minute block of just kind of getting out of it and feeling like you're in a little slump and not being able to hold the pace that you want to, and then all of a sudden you'd shake it off and find your pace. And it was just in and out of that the whole time. And I knew that wasn't an event that I was going to win. I, at one point, had dropped down to 30th place on that. We could see where we were ranked overall. I think 31st, actually. And then I kind of snapped myself out of it, decided to be tough, and just slowly kind of picked people off. And I worked all the way back up to 24th.
I'd be lying if I said I was happy about that. I think, my thought with him was, I said at the beginning of the games, there's 40 people in the field. There's always going to be people better than you at certain events, and that's okay. You don't need to chase the lead pack all the time, but try to keep yourself in the top 15. I don't think there are more than 14 people on any given event that should beat you just based on skill level. Maybe execution in the moment, but not just based on skill level. So there was part of me that wished that, because the endurance event was going to be awful no matter what. I mean, you're sitting on a rower for over 2.5 hours. It's going to suck. Your ass is going to be sore. You're going to be sweaty. You have to worry about your fueling. You're going to be exhausted posturally. Your lower back's going to be tired. Your back, all of these things that we could conceptualize or intellectualize were going to happen. But what's the real difference from a performance standpoint in going at a little bit faster of a pace and being in the top 15 and 24th? Unless you bonk and really, really overextend yourself really early in the race, I think the damage to the system is going to be relatively close in a bunch of untrained marathon rowers.
I would have liked to do a little bit better, but considering that that's not my jam, I'll take it. I guess. I don't know. I feel very neutral about that event. So I finished the first day in 19th place. Having the aspirations to want to finish the weekend in the top 3, that was tough. Joanne wasn't there either. She wasn't going to be able to be there for another 2 days because she had a final down in Miami. So I was kind of having to deal with it on my own. Max was also disappointed, and I think he was in a hard place because he was feeling the same disappointment that I was feeling, but also had to kind of be a support system for me. So we were driving home and I could tell it was just not good energy in the car. We were both bummed out, and we both were kind of I would try to say something again. I felt bad that he felt bad, and then I think he felt bad that he made me feel bad, and it was just not a great night.
Before you've been in a position you can only imagine how you should react when that situation happens. And that's kind of how I felt after day one. Is never really been in a position where I had these ambitions that I thought were relatively realistic, and so many things happened that were way outside of my projection of reality, and I needed to like deal with them immediately and then try to act as a coach in a way that I thought made sense for that situation. So the drive back after day one, because I stayed with Noah, was a pretty tense moment, and I knew Noah wanted me to say something to him, and he had said like, hey, share your thoughts with me, like what's going through your head, because I think when I get internally withdrawn, people probably worry. I mean, maybe I'm similar in that capacity as Noah, that I kind of wear that negative emotion or vibe on my sleeve, and I don't think I'm really good at covering it up. And I think also Noah knows how much I invested into this quest with him, so having that experience go south for us together was just hard. I was overwhelmed in the moment. I didn't really know what to say, so it ended up just being a quiet, awkward, negative car ride back, where I just was like probably overly gripping the steering wheel and just being quiet driving back. And then finally, just because Noah's super persistent, he just kept pressing and telling me, I want you to say something. Joanne wasn't there, who normally is his, I guess, like comfort blanket person that he would go to kind of get the emotional support that he needs and love. And I'm kind of more of the like, all right, I'm going to pressure you to make you better and hold you accountable to your goals type of person. To try to fill that role is like something I'm not going to try to do. I can't fill those shoes. So he kept pressuring, and I was like, dude, I'm disappointed. Like, that's not what I wanted the first day to look like. And, you know, now I'm trying to figure out how we get back on track. I probably communicated it more aggressively than I wanted to. I don't think I offended him or anything, but I think those are the moments that experience as a coach really helps with. I think now, having been in one of those situations, I feel a little bit more comfortable knowing how to act and how to be in the future. But those are hard moments, and I honestly feel bad. I feel like I could have been a better leader in that position for Noah. It ended up, I think he had a support system to help pull him out of that emotional state, and then I just needed the time and sleep and kind of reflective time to kind of put it all and process it and get myself back in a frame of mind that was necessary to finish the competition strong. So we have this negative day, this day that I feel like an inept coach, where I don't know what to do in that situation. And then I think we were driving the next morning somewhere, or he had come down for breakfast, and he had told me about this video that Joanne made for him.
The next day we had opening ceremonies, kind of went through the day there. And then that evening, Joanne kind of turned things around for me. She knew that I was a little bit upset about how day one went, and so she reached out to a ton of our friends and got about 30 people to send little clips of themselves just wishing me luck and telling me that they supported me and believed in me. And she made it into like a one iMovie. It actually ended up being a 10-minute video with some music in the background, and I didn't know that she had done that, so she FaceTimed me and had the video on the computer and just like was showing the computer. And she said, hey, I have something that I want to show you. And she pressed play, and the first clip is her saying, hey babe, I reached out to a bunch of our friends and they just wanted to tell you how much they love you and believe in you. I hope you enjoy it. And then it goes into the clips of some people I haven't seen in years, some of my best friends that live in other places that I don't even know how Joanne got in touch with, and some of them are friends that I see every day. But when it took like 2 clips for me to realize what she had done and what was happening. And I just like right away started to well up with tears, and I just felt really overwhelmed by this positive like love and emotion and support. And I think mainly was overwhelmed by how sweet and thoughtful it was on her behalf, and it made me feel so much love from her. And then on top of that, all the love from my friends and support from my friends and family. And that just like, I can even feel it now, but it just really filled me up and took me from this place of being bummed out and having thoughts of giving up and having to battle back and forth with that to, I already won. Like, I have all these people that love me, and now it's just my turn to go out and make them proud and do it for them. And it was really cool, and I will never forget that. And that was what started this track of the 2018 CrossFit Games being one of the most special CrossFit Games for me ever. It was right there in that moment.
The impact that had on his attitude, his emotions, his posture was just really profound. It was one of those moments where you hear your whole life that doing things for others is the, path to your greatest achievement, and then seeing that actually take place in Noah and actually see him get out of his own, I'm disappointed in this result because of, I might not be on the podium type thing, and say, I have a lot of love and things in my life that I'm really grateful for, and I'm so appreciative for this support structure that I want to fight for them regardless of what the outcome is. That was a big pivotal moment for me, observing as a coach, and then also just me feeling really grateful that I don't have to fill that role because he has that support structure that's so big. His fans, his Instagram following, his girlfriend, his family, and all of these people come together to help bring his emotions back up into the place that he needed to be to compete. So when he told me about that, this was just a really good moment for me, and I think it was kind of one of those themes that played out, that the more that he got involved with the love and adoration and screaming and chanting Noah, the more he was able to draw out of himself and perform. So it was a pretty cool moment and gesture that really ended up bringing, I think, both of us out of that kind of negative state. Him through just the impact of the video, and me through the impact that it had on him, because that just put my mind at ease that, okay, he's still in the fight, and I don't need to worry that he's going to be able to close out the rest of this competition and really get after it.
I love Bug. Can't wait to see you tomorrow.